thank you all for coming. This is a community conversation, and I believe this is our fifth group event that we've had. So how this started was my desire to really remain as close as I can to the folks that I'm representing. And I think it's really, really important that you see me not only as a politician, but someone that lives in this community, someone that cares about this community, someone that is accountable and transparent and is not going anywhere. So I really wanted to establish a connection with each community, the 18 communities that I represent, and make sure that I touch upon every town and keep it going. So this won't be the last time you hear from me. But we started, we've been to Beckett, we've been to Otis, we've been to Stockbridge, we've been to Sheffield and Dalton. So this is such a pleasure of mine to really bring a little bit of knowledge that I have, almost 9 months into my job, and also hear directly from you about the issues and the concerns and the challenges that you want me to bring back to the State House. So this is kind of a two-way conversation. And how this is going to work is I'm going to give you a little bit of shtick about who I am. How many people kind of have read the bio and have the sad story of how I came to be in the Berkshires? Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction on who I am and some brief overview on the process of being a legislator, just so you have a sense of what's happening over in the State House. A little bit about my job now, and then I'm going to open it up to everyone here. And what I've done before is ask everyone to say their names and the town that they live in. If you're a seasonal homeowner, that's fine. You could just tell me, what two places you live in. And I'm going to ask you to say that the three topics, if you have three, you might just have one, that are most of concern to you and that you would love to get some feedback on. What I will say is that I'm not necessarily going to have every single answer today, and I will be very forthright about that. But what I will promise is that I will get back to you. And I am very, very grateful to have three wonderful interns with me today. We have Asa, Isabel, thank you, and Aaron. So we have three interns, and it's really, they're wonderful, great people, and they've really put a lot into this summer. So they're high school students and college students, and I'm very, very happy. So you'll see them taking some pictures, and they checked us in. So that's kind of how it's going to go. And I'll have us wrap up, before 6. If you want to stay around and keep talking, you can. If you need to leave early, that's fine. And if you want to follow up, just make sure that you ask for that follow-up. So that's why we had to check in. And again, if there's some pressing concern that you have or an issue, make sure that I get your details and we'll follow up. I have an aide that works in the State House. Her name is Serena Keenan. She's wonderful. She's graduated at Smith, and she is kind of holding the constituent services together. So part of this presentation will be talking a little bit about what she does, because I think people don't realize the amount of emails and correspondence that we get as legislators. I asked her coming in, how many emails do you think you get a day? She said about 70 emails a day that we get. So if you think about, I represent 18 towns. I represent the largest district in the House of the entire State House. So I have 18 towns, and I also have the largest geographic area to cover. So when you think about, from end to end, I think it probably takes me about an hour and a half from, Dalton, now that Dalton's part of the district, all the way to Mount Washington. So not only do we have the largest representation in terms of towns, but also the farthest district. In terms of the expanse of it. And also, it takes about 3 hours for me to get to the State House every day with traffic. So, when you hear about Western Mass and you hear about, the regional equity, that's something we have to take, into account. That the representation here, has those additional challenges. So let me talk to you about my almost 9 months here. So I've stepped into office in January 1st. I was sworn in on January 1st. And straight away, they gave us a deadline for bills to be filed. And usually freshmen, first-year legislators don't file a lot of bills of anything. And I was, a few people said, well, you should probably just, listen and learn, and if you don't file anything, that's okay. I took it upon myself in those 15 days to really go all out and take the information that I learned on the campaign trail, I was campaigning for a year, and take those conversations and take those concerns and start to write legislation. Now, I don't have a background in law, and I'll talk a little bit about my background a little bit later, but we are very, very fortunate to have House counsel in the State House. So what I did was take some of the big concerns, such as what was happening at Miss Hall's school, for example, and take that and take a conversation I had with the district attorney and turn that into a bill that I sponsored along with a senator that had a similar bill. So that's one example. I ended up, I think, filing 24 bills in those 15 days, which is pretty substantial. And it was a lot of late nights, it was a lot of conversations with advocates, it was a lot of work with the House counsel. And through that kind of hard work, the Boston Globe, I was very grateful that the Boston Globe flagged me as a lawmaker to watch, as well as Mass Live. And I think that they saw the momentum that was being, really built up in this district. And with those bills that I filed, that comes with a lot of conversations. So, for example, I filed 5 bills on emergency medical services alone, on the reforming of that. And that came from a direct conversation that I've had with EMS providers and through a regionalization process that we had begun in the 3rd Berkshire District. So I felt that as a former state select board member that I could carry that concern to the State House, and I ended up filing 5 bills. Now you kind of wonder, why 5 bills? The legislature moves very, very slowly, and it's a 2-year cycle that a bill has to move forward. And after 2 years, once a bill is written and it's filed and it has a hearing, if it doesn't go anywhere within those 2 years, then you have to start all over again and you have to refile. So I, started out in January with the bills, and now my bills, which now I think are coming close to 32 bills, because we have home rule petitions that come in late. We have different bills that I will ask to be put in the mix. But we essentially have 2 years to get a bill over the finish line. So it's kind of a bit of a race. And so, for example, coming back to the EMS bills, there are 5 bills, and one is looking at declaring EMS as an essential service. And we have so many issues in our rural Mass and in our Berkshire districts. But this is something that would provide a funding stream and would really put it up there saying, this is an issue. This is important enough to designate it, such as how fire is designated at the police, that would have a dedicated funding stream, and it would make the point in the sand that we need to take this seriously. So that was one of the bills out of the 5. The others range from determining having CPR being taught in the school, taught by EMS professionals. So again, this was a work through to get the careers of EMS into the school. So not only are we addressing a public safety concern, but we're also bringing the EMS professionals into the school to create that pipeline. So that's kind of a glimpse into some of the way that the bills are positioned together. So as I mentioned, we're looking at around 32 bills. What happens when you go into the legislature is you are writing your bills, and you're also assigned to different committees. And I have been assigned to 4 different committees. One is federal funding, one is state administration, election laws, and climate action and sustainability. So the committees are really the meat of what we're doing, because every single bill gets a hearing. And if you sit on these different committees, your job is to listen to the testimony on the bills, and then make a determination whether the bills advance or not. So it's a very important job that we have as legislators. So in addition to advancing my own bills, I'm also sitting on committees and listening to other people's bills. So there's a lot of work that's going on in the State House. Also, as that is going on, there's a lot of conversations happening. So I might have a bill, but I might be working with Boston EMS to help advocate for my bills. I might be working with district attorneys to advance another bill. So there's a lot of conversations happening both in Boston and outside the district to advance those bills. So that's a little bit of the workings of what's going on in the State House. In addition, the district is really where my love is and where my desire and my energy goes. So when I'm not in Boston, I'm here doing this. I am talking to residents, I'm talking to select board members, and thank you very much, John and Bob, for coming here. I want to recognize them. And Bob Bishop, thank you for organizing this. But I'm also talking to select board members and DPW. So there's a lot of, if you think about the 18 towns, there's a lot of work and there's a lot of connections you're making on. So I'm giving you kind of an overview of some of the work that's happening as a legislator. And it doesn't end. I mean, it's literally 24/7. It's 7 days a week. There's always people to talk to. There's always issues that need being addressed. And there's a lot of reading and research behind the scenes. So every single bill, can take hours and hours and hours of research and advocacy. So that gives you a sense of, really what's going on behind the scenes. A little bit about, before I became a legislator, I was on the select board, and I just was shy of my second term. So nearly 6 years as a select board member. I was the vice chair of the Great Barrington Select Board. Before that, I was a finance committee member, and before that, I worked in Haywee, I worked for the Berkshire Eagle, and lastly, I worked for Construct in housing, as well as being the director of development for Eagle Mill. So I kind of touched a little bit of all the issues that you're going to hear about and what I'm actually caring for right now. So the nice thing about this is that I've actually been where you are. I've been, in municipal government. I'm a parent to 3 that have gone through the public health system, to the public education system, that has raised my kids here. When I moved here back in 2009 with my 3 kids, I was a solo parent. I still am a solo parent. So my children were 3, 5, and 7, and I did not know anyone in the Berkshires. I was living in Ireland. I was a lecturer at a university teaching filmmaking, which is really my background. And I moved to the Berkshires because I wanted to start a new life with them. And I felt that if I was going to be a solo parent, I was going to come back to America where I had been born and bring my kids who were all born in Ireland. So this community raised me and raised my children, and it's something that I felt very, very deeply ingrained that I needed to give back. So that kind of gives you a sense of kind of the flow of my arrival here and the passion that I bring to this role as a legislator. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go around the room and ask everyone here, again, some of the issues that are most concerning to you, and really open it up to the floor. If you have questions about anything I just touched on right now, feel free to ask before we get on to the other parts. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, Steve.
Can you repeat the committees that you're on right now?
Sure. Election laws, state administration, federal funding, and climate action and sustainability. Actually, that's a good point, Steve. Thanks for bringing it up. One of the initiatives that I'm bringing into raising the profile of the Berkshires is that I'm going to be bringing my Climate Action and Sustainability Committee to the Berkshires at the end of September. I believe it's September 29th. And we're going to be having a field trip. So members of my committee, I'm going to be bringing them here for a day in the Berkshires. And we're going to, it's going to be curated, and I'm going to be bringing them to different sites. And it's nothing for anyone except really the committee. And I'm going to be introducing them to aspects involving climate action sustainability that I think it's very important that other legislators are aware of. And this is an initiative that I feel very strongly about, making sure that folks in Boston know that we have, climate issues that we care very, very deeply about and that they need to be aware of. So that's something that I'm very, very proud, and I'm looking at some of the climate activists here. And this is going to be an important initiative to bring those folks from my committee here. The other initiative that I'll be doing is I'm a member of the Black and Latino Caucus. My father is Black, my mom's white, and some people don't know that I have biracial. But that caucus is very, very important to me, and I'm going to be bringing that caucus here so that we can look at the different sites, the heritage sites that will be significant to that caucus. So part of my kind of journey is to raise the profile of the Berkshire District and to make sure that when we clamor for more funding, when we talk about the need for bridge repairs and culverts and more money for our towns and the pilots and roads, that they are listening. And the more noise that I can do, the more noise that we can do as a communities, the more that hopefully that we'll get in funding and in attention paid to this district. So part of this is taking some of the issues here and making sure that someone is there fighting for Chapter 90 funds, which I'm glad to say that they are paying attention. That we're getting money for rural aid in our schools. One of the bills that I did file in the 25 bills is a bill about the accelerated bridge program to really concentrate on the need to catch up with our rural bridges. It's something that Governor Deval Patrick had brought forward and was very, very successful. It was a 10-year accelerated bridge program. So one of the bills that I have put forward is to resurrect that and to focus on the bridges. So, especially looking at what's happening in Great Barrington with Brookside Bridge, we have, in Leigh, we have the problem with the bridges. So there's bridges all over. And when I talk to legislators in Boston and they say, well, the MBTA, we have a station that is no longer working and the challenges there, I keep talking about the bridges. So that is something I'm very, very passionate about. One other thing I will bring up is that although I'm on these committees, I've been placed in the Transportation Committee suite. And that's significant because then I'm really at the heart of anything that's transportation. That is a key committee. One of my other bills is funding for microtransit. We have been very, very successful in Great Barrington with starting a pilot with microtransit and expanding it because it's so successful to many, many towns. And what I'd like to do with my bill is have designated funding for that and really raise the profile of microtransit. And just in terms of rural transportation in general. So that is just kind of a quick sketch of some of the initiatives that I'm working on and some of the bills and the committees that I'm sitting on. Is there anything else?
Just give us a quick primer on rapid transit, microtransit.
Sure. So that is an app. It's used as an app, and essentially it's an on-call system that it's similar to a taxi, but when you need a ride, you will call it. And right now, it's being operated through in Great Barrington. It started with the Council of Aging, and we had vans. And it started with using some of the vans and working through the town. The town provided money as this pilot, and it's a way to have an on-demand sense of transportation. So how this works in rural counties is that it's saving money in some ways because you're not having a van that goes around or a bus going around, which, increases gas house emissions or greenhouse emissions and might pick up 2 or 3 people looking around. You are, only coming when someone is calling for that transportation. So that has been hugely successful in Great Barrington, and I think it's expanded to 6 other towns right now, and more are asking to jump on. And each town that comes on is paying a portion into this bigger fund of this tri-town connector, which is now the South County connector. And so basically, it's an on-demand transportation solution for rural Massachusetts and other towns. So yes.
I just wanted to say that we have 3 select board members here. Tony Plum, who was just
Oh, hello. Hi, Tony. And I would be remiss not to shout out to Abe Guthrie for setting the stationery factory up and really taking the time out of your day. So thank you so much, Abe. It's such a wonderful venue, and I hope that after this you have a little look around, and if you want to book your next party, you can come see Abe, or next concert. So all right, so I'm going to open this up, and what I'd love to hear from you is what town you're from, and what's kind of top of mind. Kind of in a short summary, and then what we can do is take it from there. And again, this is kind of a two-way conversation. So I'll answer, and I'll answer the questions when I can, and then if someone else wants to chime in, feel free to do that. John.
You want to start with me? Wow. I don't really have a big question, but I'm totally aware of what's going on in Boston. And we all got good news the other day. See the Berkshire Eagle, Dalton here. And the increase in Chapter 90 funds, which is something Dalton and rural towns in Berkshire County desperately needed. I mean, this day, replace a culvert is $300,000 to $400,000. Or it used to be not maybe $10,000. But that's how desperate we need the money in. Evidently, there's going to be a large increase in chapter money and the way the formula distributes its money. And I know you had a big hand in this. So, you have the town of Dalton and the rural communities of Berkshire County. I want to thank you for your efforts.
So again, it's years and years and years of advocacy. So first of all, thank you for that.
Yeah, well, it's important to us.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes. And it's clamoring, and it's saying over and over and over again that the formula is not working for rural Mass, and that we need to make sure that we have a formula that works for us. So $100 million of the Chapter 90 funds is looking at road mileage first, and you look at the importance of that change in funding formula so that we get the money that we deserve. So most of the 18 towns in the 3rd Berkshire District will see between 70% and 90% increase this year in their Chapter 90. So that is significant. There's also a significant increase in money for culverts and small bridges. Now, the Accelerated Bridge Program, that is one of the bills that I put forward. That's separate. But at least we know that the governor in particular is paying attention, and that our advocacy is working. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
Callahan, thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. I'm just curious if, in the time you've been there, if you can sense any animosity from central and eastern Mass toward western Mass. Long been a feeling that we're the last ones on the list. It's easier to say no, etc. It's good to hear what was just said about the increase in funds coming here. But is it a feeling that you might have that we don't count as much as anybody east of Connecticut River? Because I think sometimes in some situations we're pleased with money rundown, west of the Connecticut River. I'm citing 10 years on the state football committee, so don't take that the wrong way. We had to fight like cats and dogs just to get attention to do things that would be advantageous to us. And along in those days, in those meetings, you could feel that these 4 representatives from west of the Connecticut be a better meeting if they just left. So I resented that, to tell you the truth, because we had a hard time getting attention. And in my 10 years there, we didn't get much that we tried to get. And so I know it wasn't the state legislature, but I think it functioned a lot like people think it always has. West of the river, sayonara, be good. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. And also the former principal of Wacona. Yes? So thank you for your service. You know, I'm coming up to my 9th month in the legislature, and all I know is that I'm working really, really, really hard to make a lot of noise and to bring the needs of this district and the region, you know, to the forefront of the rest of the legislature. So I have not seen that because, you know, with the $100 million, you know, specifically with the new funding formula, that is huge. The fact that Governor Healy came for the Affordable Homes Act, and I was with her in Pittsfield to announce that. With the transportation plan, she came to Lenox, you know, Town Hall, and announced that, and we've seen extra funding for small bridges and culverts and roads. So I'm not seeing that right now. Obviously, we have a lot of challenges. We have a declining population. You know, we have challenges with our schools. We have, you know, the loss of our mills and the loss of a lot of our economic development. So we do have challenges, but it doesn't mean that it has to be stagnant. It just means that we need to be creative and, you know, maybe have a little bit more shared services, you know, look at a regional basis. So I think that it's really challenging, and I haven't lost hope. I think that we have so much to offer the rest of the Commonwealth, and we just need to keep reminding them that. And we need to think out of the box, and we need to be creative and be strong. I mean, part of these kind of mini town halls is really to feel that we are connected, that we are in this together, that you have a leader that is listening and taking your concerns and saying, okay, let's find a way to achieve this goal of ours, and that's what I'm doing. I can't solve it alone, but I can solve it, you know, with the rest of the legislature. I can solve it, you know, listening to you, and we can be creative. So, you know, when we're creating bills such as the microtransit bill that I have, you know, that's thinking creatively. Okay, we might not have, you know, the public transportation system that we like here, but what can we do? So that's when you think about microtransit. We might not have the amount of EMS professionals ready, but what can we do to make that easier to recruit EMS professionals? So I think that we have distinct challenges in this region, but I haven't lost hope at all. So I have not seen that, but thank you for the question.
Hi, Cheryl Rose from Dalton. First, thank you so much, you know, for coming to see us, and also for the hard work that you're doing. And really appreciate, you know, you trying to squeak loud and get things for our rural community. And you'll have to forgive me for my cynicism somewhat after many years of lobbying and seeing what really happens after all the good work that you're going to do. Like 2 years from now, when we see what actually happens. You had asked for 3 areas of interest, so I just want to share with you my, I guess, top 3 things that I wanted to talk to you about. The first has to do with the Special Commission on Combating Anti-Semitism that came into being through the Massachusetts legislature because of the Zionist lobby, and it wasn't really given a full democratic process with public comment. It was tacked on to the budget, so that it just happened because multiple groups, you know, well-funded groups, were able to get that tacked on. I've been watching the hearings that they're having, and I noticed that there's really a lack of democracy in these hearings. And it's very clear that they're inviting folks to testify with a very particular bias. And one thing in particular last week, now that they're talking about higher level education in college, they're conflating basically the rise in white supremacy and Christian fascism. So somebody putting a swastika in a bathroom with a child who feels uncomfortable because somebody says to them, "Free Palestine." They're thinking this is the same population of people. One group truly is anti-Semitic. Another group, I'm Jewish, and I say free Palestine, from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. But I would say my total upbringing, I was a Zionist because I was fed a certain story, just like we're fed a story about the United States and its, development, just like about Israel, that they're benevolent, they're just good people, and we all want to believe we're good people. But as some of us are learning about the actual establishment of that state and, what is actually going on there, we don't feel so tolerant about it. We're not so happy. So I'm very concerned about a bill that wants to say that anti-Zionism, in other words, anti-Israel speech and whatever, is the same as anti-Semitism. Okay, so it's weaponizing my religion, and I'm very, very concerned about it. Okay, and they're making recommendations for our school curriculum. Okay. The second thing has to do basically with the concentration of power at the State House. So there are, we know that the leader decides, what committees you're on, for i.e. how much money you get paid, and we know that this really affects what happens. So there are two pieces of legislation. One is a stipend reform, which has to do, I don't know if you know about the bill, H303. So that is to, H4303, sorry, HD 4303. And so that's one thing, basically to reform the system so the speaker doesn't have so much leverage over you, and basically you can, advocate without fear of retaliation, and our community isn't going to get as much money or whatever, or that your salary is going to be affected, I guess. The other bill has to do with an independent research bureau, because we know we're the only legislature in the country that doesn't have a research bureau anymore. We used to have one that would do research on topics like energy and such, and so there's a piece of legislation for that. Okay, and then thirdly, I'm just very concerned about increasing poverty and houselessness of people in our state, and funding, a tax cut that was given after we raised money for the fair share. A tax cut was given, $10 million for a Holocaust museum in Boston from our fair share revenue. So things like that. I'm much more concerned about the uber wealthy versus the people who really need money, as opposed to the Western Mass versus the Central Mass. So, thanks.
I'm just going to kind of try to get more shorter than please. Thank you.
Okay.
And just so you know, if I keep going on, I do have folks taking notes, so it's not that
Okay. Henry Rose, Dalton, thank you for being here. Everything Cheryl just said, I'm trying to say three different things. Democracy and transparency in the State House. I know it's not terribly democratic or transparent, and I hope you can change that and use this legislation Cheryl mentioned. Lawfare, you're on the Election Law Committee, and I'm really glad to hear that. I hope you can do something to make ranked choice voting happen. I hope you can do something to make it easier for a political candidate to get on the ballot. The Green Party had to get 10,000 signatures for our candidate during mostly winter months. Getting people to take their mittens off in the winter to sign, that's deliberately an obstruction. Many states are trying to raise the number of signatures required. That is lawfare, that is wrong, that should not happen. I want to say something else. I don't see anybody here from neighborhoods that are affected by Berkshire Concrete. I'm hoping you can do what you can to help those poor people in the neighborhood that are blanketed with dust many days out of the year from that. And I believe you're well aware. I'm hoping you can do something about that. Thank you for what you're doing with EMS. That's very important to me. I'm on the CERT team here. I'm concerned about my First Amendment rights. Again, I want to say free Palestine. I want to say from the river to the sea, and that is not a place to live. And Mike over at
Marlene Tanaka, Otis, and I have two main areas. First of all, I agree with Cheryl and Henry. I'm from Palestine as well, and I like to see the commission do things that are proper in the schools and not push their law. The second thing I think, which is the most important, and I've been fighting for many years, is Medicare for all, which I think affects everyone. The health insurance and health industry is out of control. It's bankrupting people, and there are children who can't get to a doctor because there's no money. And I don't want to hear no insurance. It's not supposed to be insurance, like the rest of the world that has health coverage and care.
Hi, my name is Frank Taluppo from Otis, the place to be. That's our logo. My main, not main concern is all of the things that you're proposing and the legislature are proposing take money. And we want to be sure that the legislature is properly spending the money. And one of the ways we can do that, or you guys can do that, is to have a proper audit of the legislature. And we know that people overwhelmingly support that idea because they voted for a state audit of the legislature. What is the status of that? What's your position on that? And what are you doing, if anything, to push it forward?
Let's continue on.
Colleen for Dalton. This is my first time attending something like this. I'll admit I'm not up on all the legislation that's going on right now. But there's one thing that I've always thought is a high-speed rail. And I know this isn't right up the middle of the turnpike. You said you were in transportation committees there. I know we're the only country that doesn't have high-speed rail. I didn't even know if maybe Massachusetts could set an example for the rest of the country, be the first one to have it. Well, we could be, if we had it right up the middle of the Berkshire Turnpike, or the Turnpike, the Berkshires could be a bedroom community of Boston and high tech. That's one thing I want to say. I'm nervous. The other thing is, ICE is very upsetting to me, and I didn't know these people that are coming in, even if they're qualified, we don't know who they are. Do they have to report to an agency in Massachusetts when they're here working and be qualified, and are they checked out to make sure they're qualified? That's another concern of mine. And then this big, bad, beautiful bill here that was passed. How is Massachusetts going to handle it? Those are my concerns.
Mary Ellen Raymer, Dalton. I have the same concerns that everybody has. Just here to see what people have to say. But I like all of their concerns, especially my concerns.
My name is Mary Petty-Cause. I'm here with multiple hats. I'll just give you two. I am the woman from the Congressional District 1 that covers Hampden, Franklin, Hampshire, and Berkshire counties. And I'm concerned, my responsibility as a CD1 woman is to get out the vote, getting people to the polls. It's really important. And as part of that, as part of a number of Community Women Voters that is very concerned about civic education and voting rights. Those are two things that are extremely important. We need to encourage civic education. We need to encourage people voting. Kids pre-registering at the age of 16, and the rest of us making sure, regardless of what our choices our party is, get out the vote. And I want to thank Leigh Davis for being part of a leadership awards program that the League of Women Voters did this year called Supporting Democracy. There were $500 awards to someone from South County, Central County, and North County, plus the opportunity to shadow an elected official. And Leigh allowed a student from Mount Everett to shadow her. It was awesome. Thank you, Leigh.
I'm Bob Shepard, Otis Avenue in Dalton. And as a member of Berkshire Interfaith Organizing, I was at a convention where I learned that out of all 50 states, for transparency in state government, Colorado was #1. I looked down on the list to find where Mississippi was, because that's where my daughter lives. It was maybe 3/4 of the way down, as I expected. And then I looked for Massachusetts. Let's see here. Number 50 in transparency of the state legislature. Everything has to pass through the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House determines who is going to be on which committee. And therefore, how much more of the $73,000 annual salary that everybody gets will be added for being a member of a committee. Guess who's in charge of appointing the committee members? That same little valve at the top. Speaker of the House. Your salary as a member depends on him. My question is, in your several months in your post, have you experienced that grip? That means that last year, only 14 out of 10,000 bills were passed. 14.
So I'll step in just because there's a few questions about transparency, just and then we'll continue. You know, I've been in office almost 9 months, and I can say that I don't feel that I am getting less heard than any other legislator. I'm able, if I want to book an appointment to talk with the speaker. I see him in the State House. I see him out of the State House. The folks that I serve with, I feel that we're on even ground. I don't feel that there is a lack of transparency. And I will honestly say that I have not come across that. I don't feel that the leaders of committees, the chairs of committees, necessarily don't take their members seriously just because that they are, you know, the chairman and they answer to the speaker. I don't see that, and I don't feel that there's that power imbalance that I feel that my voice can't hurt. And I've been hearing that ever since I got into office, and I have not seen that, and I don't feel that. I think if you're a hard worker and if they see that you are a person of integrity, that you care about your community, that they will listen to you. And I do not see that. I feel that everyone is very, very collegial, that people have your backs. I'm learning a lot. We work across the aisles, so the Republicans in the House and the Democrats in the House, we're learning from each other. I don't feel that animosity that you see what's happening on Capitol Hill. So all I can say is what I've seen is not what you're talking about. And I can only speak from my experience. So, and I mean, that's the honest truth. I am, working hard, and I'm keeping my head, down and doing all that I can to represent my district. So I have not seen that, sir.
Dr. Dalton, thank you, Leigh, for coming. I have one question for the state. Is there a backup plan if we get our federal funding cut? And the other thing is from the town. Our healthcare is killing our budgets in our cities and towns. Is there anything that's state can help us with that? I mean, everybody else's health insurance is, I think the town's health insurance went up around 16% this year. And it takes a huge bite out of our budget. And the other thing is affordable housing, especially for our seniors. Is there anything that can be done about that at all?
I'm kind of torn whether to answer questions right when I'm trying to read my scribble.
What I will say is the budget, we just passed the budget, and it's a $61 billion budget. Originally, it was 62, and the governor signed it and had vetoed, I think, $180 million. So we're looking at a $61 billion budget, but baked into that is, I believe, $800 million cushion. And part of that cushion is to be prepared for inevitable federal funding cuts that will be coming that will affect the state. So I do know that as a legislature, we're well aware of what's coming, and I wouldn't be surprised if the budget is a series of supplemental budgets that as we go through the year, that we are conservative and that we address things as they come up. So one of the biggest fears that I have, as other colleagues have, is the 9C cuts, which would enable cuts to happen mid-budget year. And this could affect local aid, this could affect quasi-public agencies, and that's one of the big fears that we have, is that when we do set the budget, that there could be cuts coming. So I am aware that there is some cushion baked into the budget, and that the governor has been putting setting aside money for housing stabilization. I know some of the money is for that, and really trying to do all that we can to kind of build a nest egg so that the state is as strong as we can be, considering what's happening.
Leigh, you didn't tell Parker for Medicare for all?
Hello, my name's Joe Engler. I live here in Dalton. And 9 months ago, my issues of concern were completely different than what they are now. My number one issue of concern now is healthcare. My second one is healthcare. And my third one is healthcare. Because my incident now, the whole focus of what I'm concerned about. And when I read, whether it be on the internet, you take anything that's going to have a grain of salt. Or, in the news, is, you wonder what's going to happen next and how it's going to affect me. Has there been any, and this gentleman mentioned it a little bit, has there been any discussions in Boston about, I know let's do sanctuary cities, it could be Boston, it could be Springfield, Northampton, whatever else, to respond on a state level, and two, all sorts of federal things that could do that could cut benefits for people, especially I'm thinking Social Security and Medicare. I thank God I had mass health before I turned 65. But then when you turn 65, you switch here with the Medicare. I'd rather stay on mass health for a But I always wait for that letter to come in the mailbox saying you're being cut by 25%. I have my cup and pencils to be up on North Street trying to sell them. I just wonder if there's been any discussion about contingency plans like this gentleman mentioned about dealing with loss of federal funds.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Michelle Morantz, and so many issues, so little time. So I really want to echo the concern about Medicaid, mass health in this state, and I know that it saved people's lives, and I'm very concerned about that. I'll just add, because we have to deal with a lot of environmental threats out here in the Berkshires. Everyone knows about the PCBs and their long-lasting impact. But again, someone mentioned this in Dalton, the sand mining pollution. That's a real issue for 300 households here and the whole town. Finally, I'm just going to urge you, I know you're doing this, or I suspect you're doing this, to support Paul Mark's Green Bank. This is his third time around trying to get a Green Bank established in this state, and it will invite investment and enable low-interest loans for municipalities, companies, and individuals, so that those three sectors can move towards sustainability. And thank you for all you're doing.
Hi, Lori Martinelli. I live in Dalton, and I'm very interested in your climate action and sustainability work. I'm on the Green Dalton Committee here, and we just finished our climate action plan, but really the work really just has begun. And so I'm interested, in fact, I have a fellow member of the committee, and we're interested on education and connecting with our local high school, because there is interest there. There's a committee there, and I think there's a lot that we can do with the high school. Someone mentioned the ICE raids, but I'm very concerned about those violations of civil rights, and I think it's just a matter of time before it comes to our community or one of our Hilltown communities. And our local Dalton town committee is planning to do a fall forum on that. I can talk to you about that, because I think there's a lot of fear, and there's also concern, what can we do to help our neighbors? So, thank you.
Mark Van Horn, I live in Pittsfield. Basically, three biggies for me, mentioned several times here: affordable access to health care, the climate, and local infrastructure. All three need work.
Thank you. I'm Jeannie Ingram here in Dalton. I've been here just for about a year, so I'm pretty new to the area, and I've just been really excited about opportunities to plug into the community. And one way I'm hoping to do that is to work with our town on cultural council that has been kind of disbanded, but now we're trying to revive it. So I think one of the things that I'm also interested in is hearing, as all the other concerns everyone has, just what Massachusetts Cultural Council funding is going to look like, and not only the importance of medical support, but also our cultural life.
My name is Kevin Herkelman. We're even newer to town. We just moved to Dalton in December. Just trying to learn about the community, but one of the key things that constantly think about is young people, training, economic development that will make Dalton a great community for young people to live and work. So that kind of leads to the second thing is just around economic development, trying to attract more what I call professional services. And that kind of relates to the third thing is healthcare and really any professional services. How do we make those more available, especially in Dalton?
Hi, I'm Kathy Purdy. Also here just a few months, but I instantly joined the Green Dalton Committee, and I'm working on high school and the climate action plan, which is going to have a big hit since there's so many federal cuts, and that's a very big concern to me. Another big concern is being here for a short time. Getting health care is important, but there are no doctors. We need doctors and veterinarians for that matter. So having no doctors, having to wait 9 months to a year to get into a doctor is terrible. So that's my concern.
Hello, I'm Steve Handel from Housatonic. I guess my main concern is the Housatonic water situation. I know it's being worked on. Cleaning the river and the PCB dump in Leigh, and I'm hoping the battle against the dump is successful and maybe it won't happen. a new high school in Great Barrington. That might have been approved, but I'm not sure if it has yet. And the train to New York City, we've discussed that online. I think we were chatting about that one day. I'd like to see an easy way to get to New York City. I know they're working on something with the train through Albany, but I'd like to see some kind of train to Wadsay, from Wadsay or something, maybe a better idea. And I guess that's it. I just want to thank you for all you've done. I followed your career through, you did a great job in Great Barrington for 6 years. And you're killing it. One last thing. Why do bridges cost so much? I mean, these small bridges, first they estimate them like, oh, we're going to put a temporary bridge up. It's going to cost $1 million because the permanent one will be $5 million. Then by the time they get to it, the temporary bridge is $4 to $5 million, and the permanent one is $15 million. And these are like 200 feet long. I don't get it, but I'm sure there's really a good reason. Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to?
I too am new here. I've only been here for about 36 years. So, gladly. And I live in Dalton, and I just came to listen and learn. And that's what I want to do. So thank you.
Hello, my name's Tony Pagliarulo. I'm from Dalton. Second time this week. I guess I want to start off by saying that taxes are the price we pay for civilization. And for all the things that have been said here thus far, money is going to be the issue. And we're under siege. The federal government, we all know, has just started. It's going to come down to the state. It's going to come down to the local level. And at the local level, our select board and our various boards and voters are going to have to prioritize competing priorities. It took 15 years, but it came about that we had the Fair Share Amendment. That raised some $2.5 billion. And as I said when I started, in terms of monies or taxes, I think there's going to be a proposal in terms of a wealth tax. And all the brouhaha about people exiting the state and the detriment of the Fair Share Amendment hasn't come to pass. And I don't believe it will come to pass if indeed there's a wealth tax. Our end of the state has a median income much less than the eastern end of the state, so we are truly unique. We could use monies for pilots. As you know, we signed off on our select board, payment in lieu of taxes. Dalton has 4,400 acres. We're reimbursed $21 an acre. Every community in Western Mass is reimbursed in the tens of dollars, not the hundreds or the thousands of dollars. We just need more money coming our way, much like the Chapter 90 funds for construction, which is great, out of the fair share. And I know your voice, among others, are going to be heard, I hope, to get money our way. And so I would hope that if there is a proposal for a wealth tax, we're looking at 3.5 years of a federal siege. We're going to need to have money soon. And that money's going to have to be appropriated at the state level. People who are earning good money and a share of it.
Actually, the legislation is the corporate fair share, and we have signed on to that to tax big, mega, global corporations more, like Amazon and Walmart. So they're not paying their full amount, our legislation, raising their taxes. That's a piece of legislation.
So thank you all so much. As you can see, that there's a lot of issues that we all agree on that need attention. And part of what my focus is to take some of these questions, answer them now, and if I can't answer them, come back and work on the answers with you, and really also take that information and those challenges and concerns and make sure that people that have the ability to move pieces of legislation forward or policy that they understand that this is of concern. I'm going to try to address some of them that have been echoed quite a lot. And before I kind of get into this, because I know some of you might need to be leaving early, this is what community is about. I mean, this is why we are here. We all are so lucky to be living in this region, in the Berkshires. We've come from different places. I think I probably came from the farthest away from Ireland. But we're all in this together. And I think part of this is, thinking creatively and realizing that there are competing priorities and there's only a certain amount of money available. So, if we can't come up with funds, then what do? Is it shared services? Is it regionalization? Is it, obviously ways to think out of the box? So we all, at the end of the day, we need more money. And what we're seeing in Washington, we can, safely say that that's not going to happen. And we're actually going to be losing money quite rapidly in the next 3.5 years. So what do we do as a community after that? What do we do as a region? And I think there's a lot to learn from each other. And part of this is, what my vision is to bring the 18 towns together and, start talking about, shared services more, start talking about regionalization and, find the commonality between these kind of mini town halls and figure out solutions. So I do want to thank you before we kind of go into the weeds here. The transportation, the trains, just because it's last on the list. I know that Steve has been, bringing up, how are we going to really address rural transportation and the need for rural transportation? One thing that I did when I was a select board member, when Senator Adam Hines was still in office, was, I was thinking kind of out of the box, and I saw the discussion about, West-East rail or East-West rail, and, the time it took and the hurdles that we had to go through just to get, it to a point. And, we did see quite a substantial amount of investment and money put towards it. And there always seemed to be hurdles, whether it was Connecticut or just a lack of funding or sinkholes that we've seen recently. So an example of thinking out the box, as a select board member, I said to Senator Hines at the time, I said, well, what if we had a shuttle, kind of a service that went from Great Barrington to Wassaic, which is Metro North. And we have this built-in, commuter rail only 45 minutes away from downtown Great Barrington. What if, the town provided this shuttle service and without spending, hundreds of millions of dollars of money, we provided this service, and then you could be in Grand Central Station in 2 hours. So that was something that we did, receive an earmark for. It was never fully realized, but it's one of these examples of, okay, we're not going to wait 10 years for this train service, but what can we do as a community? And I talk about that because that was an example of, okay, well, we might be able to get a shuttle. We might be able to have Great Barrington sponsor the shuttle and get people downtown New York City. So that's just one example of transportation that I want to bring up, and I know that Steve, you've brought that up a few times, so I just wanted to bring that. Doctors and hospitals and healthcare. This is such an issue. I was just talking to a doctor that works at Fairview just yesterday. I ran into her on the road, and she was saying we have the jobs. We have such a need in terms of we have positions available. We just don't have the people that can move here in terms of what they need. And what they need is housing. And what she said is over and over again, we have like 45 spots, I think she said, in Fairview, but we can't get the providers because they can't find places to live. So that is a hurdle, and that also connects to people when they make a decision whether to move to this region. A lot of them look at hospitals. They look at, are there enough medical providers? How long do I have to wait to see a provider? If there's a specific, injury or something that you're, in need of medical assistance or medical help or, specialty services, that's something that people will make a choice in terms of where they live in the country. And that is something that I hear time and time again that is about the need for healthcare services and to address the need of healthcare providers and the lack of healthcare providers. So that kind of comes in, hand in hand with the lack of EMS and the fact that, we just don't have enough providers. And, that's tied into housing, that's tied into the fact that we're such a, a rural district that it's very, very hard to connect all the dots. So I will say that, many of you know that Fairview Hospital is expanding, and that came from a lot of advocacy locally saying, we really care about this critical access hospital that is such a need, or such a point of joy in our community, and we need to invest in it. So I'm happy to say that Berkshire Health Systems has put a substantial amount of investment into developing Fairview Hospital for that reason, and we will be seeing an expansion in that hospital. So healthcare is huge, and we talk about up to 300,000 people losing their healthcare if the federal funding cuts do happen, and we unfortunately can see that coming down the road. When we talk about competing priorities, that's going to be something that the state is going to have to look at. Whether the money goes into filling the gaps for healthcare, filling the gaps for transportation, for schools, and there's going to be a lot of gaps coming in, and I think that's part of the reason why we might be looking for smaller budgets throughout the year to address any budget shortfalls as we go. So that's all I can say, because I think we're still unraveling what this big beautiful bill looks like and how it's actually going to affect the state. So there's a lot of there's a lot of people analyzing how it's actually going to impact, but we do know it's going to impact the state. In terms of let's see what else, Housatonic Waterworks, that is something that's happening in Great Barrington and West Stockbridge and Housatonic, and that's an issue that I could probably address specifically with the folks that want to address that. But that is, it's a private water company that there's a substantial amount of folks that receive their water from Housatonic Waterworks, and there are talks about the town acquiring Housatonic Waterworks, and there's also a rate case that's looking at the manganese system and developing a green sands filtration to address the manganese problem. So that's a very, very specific issue right there. High schools. So let's see. Oh yes. So the need for youth and really putting our money into the next generation, and this is something I feel very, very strongly about. Obviously, it took a lot of money for Wacona. And it took a lot of money for Taconic, to get to the level that they are. We're looking at Monument Mountain High School, another vote. I think it will be the third vote to see if we're going to renovate this high school. And that's going to be a tough vote. I mean, it's a regional high school, and there's money involved. When we started the discussion about the high school, I think the town could have, been in for $25 million and would have received a new high school. Now we're looking more like an $80 million investment. So the longer you kind of push things down the road, the more expensive it's going to get. And you can't deny the fact that we need to invest in our youth and invest in families in terms of convincing them that we actually have an infrastructure, which is our youth, that it's something worth believing in. Anecdotally, I will say that when I moved here with my 3 children from Ireland, I looked at the Berkshire Hills school system, and that was one of my deciding factors of moving here, was I felt that we had a good public school system, and I could, feel comfortable that my kids would be looked after, and I'm happy to say that they've really benefited from the school system. So that's tough. I mean, we have an aging population, we have a declining population in terms of numbers, and we have a smaller amount of people that are going to be left paying the taxes on these high schools. But when you look beyond that and you look at what we're getting, these are our future, providers of healthcare. These are our future firemen and police, and folks that work in our stores and work in our homes. So we really need to invest in the future of our public education, and that's something that it's going to be coming up for a vote in October, Steve, I believe. ICE. So, we all know that the situation with immigration has really taken a turn well, it depends on where you are really with your thought process on this, but that ICE has stepped up, and there is a level of fear in our communities that we need to address. And these are folks that have kids in their schools, these are folks that work in our shops that we know deeply that are our neighbors. And you know, when we talk to the groups that are on the ground working with these people, such as the Group Basic, you know, they are trying to make sure that these folks can have access to food, that they can still, you know, safely feel that their kids can go to the school. And that is an issue that unfortunately the state does not have a lot of control on in terms of, you know, how we can control ICE in our communities. And when we talk about the powers of the local police enforcement, Great Barrington, for example, you know, has a trust policy, and we have an agreement with our Great Barrington Police Department that they will not be cooperating with ICE. Other towns, you know, so-called sanctuary cities, they might have a trust agreements, you know, they can do that as well. But when it comes into ICE coming into the community, there's not a lot that we can do as a community. I know that there's a bill right now trying to unmask ICE. That is unfortunately not anything we can do. It sounds great and we all want that, but that's unfortunately nothing that we can control. So I think there's that balance of saying that's a great idea, yes, yes, and then realizing that, you know, it could be something we could put our energy elsewhere. So I know that with the Black and Latino Caucus, we're looking at Plymouth, we're looking at the correctional facility, and we want to make sure that, you know, the children that are being held there and the women that are being held there, you know, have their, you know, have legal counsel, that, you know, have access to food and everything that they need, that they're being taken care of as much as they deserve. So whatever we can do as a state, we're trying to do, but unfortunately with the oversight and the federal powers that they have, there's not a lot we can do from a state perspective. Thank goodness for the Attorney General and the other AGs across the country that are, you know, time and time again are, you know, putting forth you know, court cases and challenging what's happening. So I think with our AG's office, we have someone that's very, very strong that will continue to join with other communities in other states. But locally, what I will say is, you know, check on your neighbors, help out your, you know, food pantries, you know, talk to your schools, make sure that the people that are feeling vulnerable know that you're here for them. So it's a really, really, really tough situation right now, and we're already seeing the effect in terms of small businesses losing their employees. We're seeing, you know, small businesses shutter. We're seeing, you know, landscape companies, you know, not being able to you know, do their jobs, and this is only the beginning. So I think, you know, with the next 3.5 years, there's going to be a lot of change, and there's going to be a lot of transition. And things like this is what we can do, is we can come together as a community and know that we have each other and we can talk to each other and take these priorities and try to work on it piece by piece, step by step. Let's see. My voice is dying, so.
I just wanted to say that this immigration policy is impacting the healthcare system in our area. We recently lost an eye doctor from Berkshire Eye Center because his partner was denied a green card by the federal government. And so he pulled up and moved to Canada to be with his partner. So on a lot of different levels, it's a bad idea.
Yeah. Since the beginning of President Trump's term, there has been a 336% increase in immigration arrests. And due to ICE's goal of deporting 1 million immigrants per year, it works out to 3,000 people per day that are being affected right now. So there is something called a 287G agreement, and this is something that municipalities can make sure that they don't sign up to. Right now, we only have the House of Corrections. I think that's the only one that has a 287G model enforced. But basically what this does is it gives ICE the ability to work with local law enforcement and extend their powers, so that you could, in theory, if a municipality signed up for this, that they could have their local police kind of operating as ICE agents, so to speak. So that is something that the legislature is keeping an eye on these 287G agreements. So, is there anything?
Is there a place that lists all the Massachusetts locations where they're taking detainees, or are they just pulling them up right out?
Yeah, I believe, and I don't want to be quoted on this, but I know that Plymouth, there's one facility there, and they are starting to take them out of state. New Hampshire is a place that they are taking them. And there's a couple concerns about that, is because obviously if they're living in Massachusetts and they're being taken out of state, it's harder for the families to go visit them. It's harder for them to have access to legal counsel. And Massachusetts, we feel that if they're going to be picked up, Massachusetts is the better place to be. So, there's a combination of them being transported, to Texas and New Hampshire and so forth. So if we have to have them arrested, the thought is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is the place that we'd rather have them held. So the question is, do you expand the number of beds or not? So that's a conversation that people are having. I do want to kind of touch on something really quickly before we wrap up, and if I haven't, addressed everything, feel free to, talk to me afterwards and talk to the interns that are working here to make sure that I have your details, and we'll follow up. But when I was talking about I have one aide, and I was talking about the 18 towns that I represent. We have, again, close to 100 calls or, messages a day that our aide my aide is working on. And some of the topics that come up are anything that ranges from unemployment to legal assistance to national grid problems to mass save. And the amount of calls that we get is very high, but what I will say is that we have a huge success rate. So if you do come to me with a concern saying that, I filed for unemployment and I haven't heard back, I'm having, trouble with the RMV, I'm having trouble with mass saves, we have a very, very success rate, very, very good success rate. And I will say, always feel that you can reach out to our office if there's anything. So even if it's small, even if it's, how do I get off, these spam calls that keep coming to me. We have quite a few folks that are, being besieged with calls, and they're asking us, how do we, stop the calls. We also have information on different grants and different vouchers. If you have an e-bike, you could get a rebate. So we know things in terms of, things ranging from solar rebates to grants. So again, if there's a specific issue that you have heard about or you want some clarification, please feel free to reach out to the office, because that's what we're here for. We have, access to different agencies that, having a representative on the other end of the line, that actually is very, very helpful. So if you, are coming up to an issue and you're not getting a call back, or you feel that, I might be able to help out, please do reach out for that. So I asked Serena just to kind of put together a few details of what she's working on. And what she said, I'll just give you about unemployment. She says, unemployment issues are one of the most common types of cases that we handle. Typically what happens is that people submit their applications for unemployment to the DUA, but then they don't hear anything back within 3 to 4 week processing timeline. There's a hotline, but it also has an overwhelming volume, and sometimes it can be extremely difficult to get through. So when this happens, our office can assist. And again, she says we've received 12 of these cases in this past alone, so that's something that we can help out. Another example, home improvement contractor. Recently, a local contractor reached out to us regarding his renewal application for home improvement contractor registration. He had filed his application prior to the deadline, but the website had a pop-up saying that he would get a notification when the process was completed. When he called the office to clarify the timeline, he was told that due to short staffing, there's currently a 4 to 5 day review process, which he was not aware of. And with the deadline fast approaching, he reached out to us if we could help. Serena was able to reach a contact at the Office of Consumer Affairs and Businesses Regulation, and we were able to get his registration renewal process the next day. So that was a nice one. We had someone reach out about a workplace discrimination case, and we were able to connect them with Community Legal Aid, which was an organization that provides free legal aid services to low-income and elderly residents of Western Mass. We had someone call about a license to carry application. He had submitted his application and received his license, but the birth date that was printed on his license was incorrect by 20 years, making it invalid. He had reached out to the local police department for assistance, who said they would take care of it. However, after some time, he had still not received a new license, and we were able to connect him with someone at the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, and we followed up with the department that handles firearms licenses, and they ended up mailing a reprint of the license in the same week. We've handled mass save issues, National Grid, we get a lot of National Grid calls, and so forth. So I just, I wanted to give you a sense that, as a representative, that's what I do. I connect you with agencies. I try to, move you along, as well as writing legislation and doing the big picture stuff. But it's really, really day-to-day stuff. And if you're going to get anything out of this conversation, just know that I am accountable to you, and I will work for you. And it's not just me, being a politician. This is my job. So in addition to all these issues that we've been listening to about, what's coming up the pipeline with the cuts to federal funding, on day-to-day things, I can often really help you along. So I want to make sure that you know that that is something that our office does, and we take pleasure in helping you out. So that's super important. There is business cards when you walked in. So if you need a business card, if you need, a phone number, email address, please feel free to grab one. And I'm gonna stop just because I'm losing my voice and, and I need to stop. But thank you for coming today. And the more that we can help our neighbors and our region, the better off we'll be. So thank you again, and it's good seeing you.